Hello, Curl friends. This is Annalise Harris, founder of Curls on the Block. I am going live today, formally with Curls on the Block platform because, of course, we advocate and support our young Black girls and curl friends all over the globe, nationally, statewide, everywhere. A recent event has caused an uproar of opinions to be shared regarding proper consequences in regards to how to de-escalate and manage incidents that are occurring in our community with our youth, and in particular, our young Black girls. It is almost actually just over a year that Curls on the Block partnered with Great Education Colorado and a number of other organizations that brought the film The Push Out to Colorado. And it was pretty much recently released at that time, right? And it was the last in-person event before the lockdown. And so just a year ago, we were having essentially the same conversation about the criminalization of young Black girls. And it was in regards to school. And today, we'll be able to highlight Black girls, de-escalation, and the community. So I would like to show a quick trailer of the film. The book, you know what, if you watch this and you're commenting and share, I have a couple of more copies of The Push Out available, and I'm willing to do a giveaway for those who participate today and share the video and join the discussion and our understanding of why it's so important to see our young girls as girls and stop the adultification, sexualization, hypersexualization, and criminalization of our young Black girls in schools and our communities, and interacting with folks of all backgrounds. So whether it's their career, a person of authority, their friends, and family members. With no further ado, here is the trailer.
This video went viral, but incidents like this can be found throughout America. The criminalization of Black girls in schools disrupts one of the most important factors in their lives: education. I would like for schools to become locations for healing so that they can become locations for learning.
These young women, they are pushing up against racism, sexism, classism, homophobia, xenophobia.
I've asked girls if they felt that teachers were afraid of them. And some girls will say yes, their teachers are afraid of them. And then they laugh, because why would an adult be afraid of a child?
And the word of the week is condone. Condone.
As a nation, talking about the school to prison pipeline for Black boys and Latino boys, but absent of that conversation,
What we learned, Emma,
was how girls of color and Black girls in particular were being impacted.
What that then did was send the message that what's happening to girls isn't necessarily a crisis.
What's crazy is that there are 300 girls in this school. Good majority of girls here are Black, and they go through a lot. And I know they go through a lot because they're Black. They live in America.
My teacher got super duper mad and dragged me by the chair, yelled at the other kids to move, and dragged me all the way outside.
Oftentimes, I'm going to say what they don't see is they just refuse to see Black girls as being somebody able to be harmed. My harm can actually be like, come at me and I'm coming for you.
I was known for fighting I had a big mouth. Like, I would just put up a front like I was so angry. But deep down inside, I was really depressed and I was really sad.
We know there's a higher number of assaults against Black girls. They're more likely to be trafficked. They're more likely to be molested. They're more likely to fall into so many different categories that affect their ability to learn.
I actually got caught up with a pimp for like 3 days, but I knew it was like so wrong. Like I just didn't want to be here no more. You push a girl out of school and you push her into the streets. You push her into violence. You push her into trauma.
Whereas I felt like we needed to approach any of our intervention from they are capable, they are strong, they are vulnerable.
It matters.
They are worth protecting.
Even though you think you're doing racial justice work, if you're not talking about girls, you're not doing racial justice work.
The question is whether we believe that certain children need surveillance and policing and punitive responses, and other kids get to explore who they are.
Black lives matter worldwide till the end of time. We're rising up. Can't nobody stop us. The love we got colossal. We're rising up.
So, as you can see, this has been well documented, well researched, experienced personally, as well as in my own career as an educator, witnessing the overcriminalization, sexualization, and isolation young Black girls are experiencing. And in particular, in a state that definitely has a majority of white students, but the Black girls' experience matters. And I am so grateful to have another educator and willing to join this conversation and challenge some of the thoughts and statements that are definitely being spread about who's deserving of a consequence and what that should look like, and should it equate to death in our community. It's just, honestly, I teared up, I'm not gonna lie, just watching that again. I've seen the film a couple of times, I've read the book, and it is very hard to talk about because we're still dealing with it, and just seeing how quickly, less than 24 hours, we just gave her a sentence. Excuse me. We gave a young girl a sentence that, because she had a knife and didn't listen the first time, that she deserved whatever came to her. And I'm tired of that. So I'm going to pause really quick. Sorry, I tried to get myself together and I was muted the whole time. That's okay. So I'm really emotional, and because it hasn't even been 24 hours, and again, we've again, decided whose life is valued, and I'm just grateful to bring up a good friend and colleague, Yarkenda Payne, who has experience working with our youth and as an educator and dean, and I'm going to bring her up now.
Hey.
Hey, I'm like turning all kinds of colors.
No, I feel you. Because it's real pain. It's real pain to see like the judge, the jury, and the executioner all happened in less than 24 hours when we just got through watching a whole case that lasts 2 weeks. But in less than 24 hours, she's guilty. Like she deserved what she got. She deserved to be treated like that. So
yeah,
it is painful. Yeah, it is painful to see. It's painful to see friends. It's painful, like people who you love and trust and think got your back, and then you see their real opinions of this situation where you're like, whoa, okay. Oh, she deserved that.
And they're trying, it seems like, so, just to catch some folks up who may not know what we're talking about, Ma'Khia Bryant, is it Makia or Ma'Khia actually?
Ma'Khia, I think her mom said Kaya on the video that I watched.
Okay. And that's what I was thinking, Ma'Khia. And Ma'Khia Bryant, she's either 15 or 16. We couldn't even get the actual age right.
Right.
As though that really is mattering. Legal documents show she's not an adult, right? And 15 and 16 would have mattered actually if it came down to courts, if she had an opportunity to have her chance in court to stand and say and share her side of what was going on in her life, which we've juxtaposed against the mass shooters who would continue to get a chance to stand and terrorize and live unless they put their own lives, right? She didn't get her chance to share how old she is, her hobbies, which turned out to be she was a curl friend to the fullest.
Right. TikTok videos.
Yeah. Curly queen. And just she had value. And it is in alignment with, unfortunately, the other Black women who've also been killed by the hands of the police after minimal interaction. Okay, confrontation. Okay. Resisting arrest. She didn't even get it. There was no even effort to arrest.
Her back was turned.
That's what, okay.
Her back.
He was shot in the back. But that's okay, because I'm really upset, and so we don't even have all of the story. So there's certain things we can't even share about Ma'Khia Bryant yet. It's just that it's another case of an abuse of power that we see. It is an abuse of power if one of your first strategies is the most lethal, despite training and what have you. And so what we know is she was either 15 or 16, still pending.
Her mom said 16.
So 16. So there we go.
We don't even know that situation. Like we don't know. We know she was in foster care. We don't know everything, but what we do know now is she was in foster care. The lady who said she was her mom said that she was 16. And that her name was Kaya, and she called her Kaya. That was it. We don't even know the full circumstance of everything, but
couldn't even get it. But we had our folks ready to say who that she was wrong and post screenshots that weren't from the body cam of the officer.
Yeah,
completely right. There was some other video, wasn't there? But just prior, and even if it was, there were some people who were screenshotting stuff from the body cam. But
the part that reflects
all around.
Say that one more time.
There was adults surrounding her.
Problem.
There was 3 to 4 adults.
Yes,
3 or 4 adults in this scenario. They didn't get shot.
What they're saying is the women were adults. We don't know all the factors yet, but
yeah.
I'm
But
like,
then I heard a dad's voice. A man, and I say dad because you didn't shoot my daughter. That's what he said, and they were just falling out. It was within a minute of arriving.
20 seconds.
I gave a minute because he's seen it. I'm giving the minute for the full show up.
Right, the rolling up to the scene.
Pull it all out. Like he was ready. And that's what we saw, right? And we're tired of seeing that.
Right.
We're tired of that. And so there's a few things that I wanted to kind of structure. As well, I had to vent. I appreciate you for letting me say disjointed things about what we barely know about this situation.
Of course.
And so I want to frame a few things. This conversation around Black girls, criminalization of Black girls, and then community, and how we can, kind of be able to push forward. Because I'm never one to want to just stay in the emotion completely. I'm okay sharing it and sitting in it, and then being able to move and see where
I've been in it all day. all
we
night.
might still be in it all week. I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
However, I would love for you to share maybe just a few pieces of your background. Obviously we met and you actually ended up being at a similar school space that I had recently left, but I'd love to hear your credentials and just your experience with working with youth.
Yeah, so I have been in education since 2014. I started my education career in actually in City Year in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And so I was working. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. So I started in Philadelphia. Then I moved to Denver to work on education policy. So I was working on higher education access with the senator's office here. And then I got back into the classroom. And so I've been in various roles in the school. And then I ended my education career with being a dean at all girls school here in Denver. And so now I'm in a different industry. I'm in the business industry now, aerospace industry right now, but I am still, my heart is still with education, and I still love talking about all the topics around education.
Wow, nice. And, we need your voice and your presence and your allyship for sure. Your experiences matter. So I would love to hear maybe one of the wildest situations you are able to share as a dean. What was it became wild, like it shouldn't maybe been a thing, but
yeah,
it was like the wildest thing that you had to deal with. Why is this student here? What are we doing? What is this?
Yeah, I think that would make me cry too.
Okay,
I think that's what it's so many instances that came up from the situation where I saw so many of my girls, as I was watching that video, I was like, dang, I wish I was there. I wish, how great would it have been to have someone who understood her, who knew her, would jump in and interfere in this situation, that no, she's this is the trauma response. So I feel like this has happened in the school that I worked in, where we had to call law enforcement over a threat situation in the school. It was actually a threat that was made towards another school by a Black girl, a Black student. And we know her. I know her. All of us knew her. So we knew that it was just, again, another trauma response that was happening. But of course we had to go through the proper protocols in case something happened. So we went through the protocols. She was sitting on the chair, long story short, she was sitting on the chair. The officer came in and she was pretty adamant that she did not want to go with them. But she was calm. She was sitting. And it just came with such aggression towards her, so much aggression. And she had none. She was eating a snack. We had already de-escalated her. We were sitting in there just relaxing. Of course, food I know food makes me happy. So a lot of times food make kids happy. And we had got our snack. We're just sitting there. And the officer came in very strongly. And this came after the same instance had happened. A similar instance had happened with a white student at the school. And the officer who came and reported handled the situation as like, I would wish any officer would come and handle a situation with a student, with a young person. And I'm like, wow, that was pristine. Like, that was a great example of how law enforcement should interact with students, how law enforcement should interact with youth. And then fast forward to the next day, a Black youth is experiencing a similar situation, and the officer come in hot, ready to go. And it ended up being a fight. Like, they literally pushed her into a corner, dropped her down to the floor. It was so, like, even I got upset. I literally was in there, like, my coworkers was like, oh, we need to get you out of here. Because I literally was upset with the officer. Like, wait, she was calm. It was so much work had happened before you got here. And now you've escalated her to a point where she is resisting because you've escalated her there because we had coached her. We talked to her about what to do when the officer came in there. We had got her prepared to, like, calm down and approach this in the way that we thought she would, survive that situation. That's what we have to do, like, teach them how to survive the situation with the law enforcement officer. And so it just went left field because of the officer, the way she came in. Like, they had to restrain her. It was absolutely absurd. And so it made it worse because just literally the day before, or a couple of days, I don't remember the exact timeline, we had a similar situation where it was handled properly. And we were all just very relieved and happy that the situation was handled so well. So when people say that, it's not about her being a Black girl, or seeing people saying that it's not about her, like, her skin color or whatever, it's about her having a knife. Let's be real. Let's talk about the realness. That's what I'm so fired up about, because it's not true. And people are eliminating the true narratives around what it's like to be a Black girl and experiencing a range of emotions, because we don't get to experience a range of emotions.
No, not safely, at least.
Exactly.
They become obviously life-threatening. So,
yep.
Well, thank you for sharing exactly what I would hope people can hear, that you as a dean have witnessed in school spaces, how that's a space where the officer, like, hey, what's happening, you have support, you have connections, and still there's a clear difference in how our Black younger youth, girls, are being treated.
Oh yeah.
In comparison to white peers, but also just in general. Like, even if we stop comparing, okay, cool. We're not even going to compare. This was inappropriate.
Period.
And I have seen some people that have commented on different posts saying, it's easy to work with. I was like, okay, I'm not going to sit here and act as though breaking up fights and things like that are easy. They're not. Easy. But I can tell you one thing, as a special education teacher, as a community member, I have broken up fights. I've put my physical body, I'm 5 feet. I put my physical body, and the girls are 5'7", 150 plus pounds to my 120. Hey, I still, because I had a connection, that did help. But at some point, there was two girls who really just didn't really know me too much. They knew of me. And then even in the community, I put myself, it was a particular event we celebrate in June, not gonna put it out there completely, but that had some youth arguing, heated. It's hot already in June. We know, right? So, and what's funny is I really had to advocate to get this tent that Curls on the Block was sponsoring. I had to get, I was like, hey, we need electricity because we need a cool down spot. The average person is hot in June if they're at an event.
Yep.
it was in 2019. They're at an event, they'd be hot. Lo and behold, I'm grateful that I was able to obtain from Chubby Curls. Shout out Chubby Curls.
Chubby Curls.
Yes, an outdoor, well, not outdoor, but a portable air conditioner that had wheels and stuff that didn't need like a whole setup for like windows and stuff. So it helped cool them down. Literally 10 girls came to this booth that was like the beauty area, hair and beauty section of this big celebration in June, and sat down after I got involved. They at first thought I was a kid too, trying to get in. And they're like, who are you? Who do you know? And I was like, I don't know none of y'all, but you're not just yelling up in here. You gotta go outside. And
it takes community intervention. Like I've had a friend who called me like, girl, I might need you to come down the street on Colfax. I'm trying to break up a fight of these kids in the middle of the street. Yeah. Like, and I'm like, yes, okay, tell me where, like it's just, it takes a community effort. Exactly. Absolutely. What you're saying. Like the people who were standing around, I didn't even get to that post yet today. I was on a posting rampage, but that was another thing. I was like, what adults are standing around watching this happen?
Let's see. I want to read one of your posts too. Let's see. The one that I shared, I mean, all of them from today have been so impactful. Which one should I choose now? I think the first one that I really saw was, have you worked with teens who have trauma responses when angry? Are you a former teen with trauma responses? As a teen, brains are not fully developed. A teen's response to an emotional situation literally comes from amygdala. How you pronounce that? Impulsive and emotional zone. So that's an area in your brain.
Amygdala.
Amygdala. Oh, shoot. That's why I had to turn off the
light. I didn't hear what you say.
Amygdala. Sorry. We adults use our prefrontal cortex, decision-making, impulse control. As a child in foster care, we can safely assume there is some trauma. Absolutely. Trauma literally alters the brain. She was in active fight or flight mode. And, trauma response doesn't equate to death. A knife doesn't equate to lethal force. And Black girls don't deserve to die at the hands of people they call for help. Exactly. And then, another one that just was so poignant. Where is it? Maybe that was the other one. Oh, no, here it is. Some of y'all acting like we didn't grow up. Or fighting and jumping in the whole nine. Exactly. Knuck if you buck. Crime Mob was
yes, right. Anthem.
Anyway, I've seen police respond to calls where many weapons, knives, bats, broken glass were present and no one died. And we went home and laughed today about it. Some still have beef from those times you got jumped. Yes. And have trauma, right? We're angry. People are angry still because of what was happening to them. And we know police can respond in different ways. So I appreciated that one too, because that requires internal reflection. It requires people to stop dismissing the situation of a young Black girl. Oh, well, and quickly forgetting how quickly we forget how we grew up. And we've been brainwashed to believe that we deserve these intense, extreme consequences. That's why it's really difficult for people to figure out other ways of disciplining their children. And, we have biblical connections people really do follow with spare the rod, spoil the child. However, they don't also invest and embrace and love on their children the same way as they do the discipline. And then you wonder why people are so angry later, because there's an imbalance often, right? The rod didn't mean every single time they did something. There was a recent tweet I remember that was like a broken glass of peanut butter, and it was like, respond as a Black parent. And some of the first responses were, oh, wow, you made a mess. Let me help you clean it up. Woo! That's so different than a lot of people may have received. love when errors were made, compassion. And just as, you know, in past current events where our community has really shown its true colors about accepting our young Black women or mistakes Black women make or not really accepting it, very harsh and critical and assume that we should know better and we should have done better. And she's grown. She acts grown all the time. All of these components that strip away from Black.
The comments that I saw, it's a comment I saw that someone was like, if I saw a big 250-pound 6'2" person come towards me, I would have got a pistol too. And I'm like, oh.
Yes, you was that officer. So
I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
But she wasn't even that. Those weren't even her dimensions.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, where are we getting this from? People are coming up with all types of things to say she deserved death, period. When we have a direct example here in Colorado of someone being walked out of a building after killing multiple people, armed and very dangerous.
Yep.
But walked out, had some injury somewhere, but it wasn't deathly because he was walking.
Right. Yeah. And it's just been very frustrating to see those comments and the criticism is really strange, especially from people who haven't worked with kids. I'm like, you don't have kids and you haven't worked with them. And then what is concerning is the people who I know have worked with kids and are still acting as though this is not the same. How disassociative are we becoming between the trauma we witnessed with George Floyd being killed in public, and this young Black girl being shot and killed in public? How is this not the same? We're literally asking for consideration in our communities. When we say defund, or I'm not even saying repair or rebuild. I'm not even saying that. But when we're asking folks to reconsider how policing is done, because that's what it is, policing. If you even think about that term, policing, what are you policing? That does not trigger serving and protecting to me. That policing is managing and what is the term? Micromanaging, but also in making sure things you are fit in this box. You can't do anything else. You know, policing is you do this, you're out. You know, we are not a police state. Like there's more. Anyway, but as an educator, you know, you shared your experience. We've shared our response and who we're shocked are saying these things. You mentioned even how this young girl, you know, the descriptions used. And I can say that I am a disappointed, absolutely, and out of words for what I do believe would be a different response if she looked a little bit different. Yeah. If she was if she was more in shape, maybe if for what they believe is in shape. Because to me, I'm like, well, she's 16. I don't know what else you want her to be, because what we see as 16 then is hypersexualized. So which one do you want? Do you want a kid who's growing, or you want a kid who's grown and then you blame her for seducing older men? I don't know what people want. I really really don't know what they want.
Right. I think one of the biggest things that came up for me is like this idea that people are saying, well, what should he have done? Like, he didn't have time. She was going to kill that other person. Like, what do you do? And I'm just like,
tell us 5 things the officer could have done, because I want to hit on de-escalation. Tell us, what are your thoughts?
I mean, so many things they could have done.
I'm gonna type them in so you can read.
I'm sure. We saw him get out the car with the gun, first of all. Like, that was his first weapon choice. I'm sure they have a tool belt of options. I know there's a taser. Okay, if you want to go extreme, first you see a knife, you instantly feel threatened. What can you do to just like disengage this person? Even I set up a police siren, Because sometimes when kids are in trauma response mode, a voice that's unfamiliar to them, they do not hear. And I want people to understand trauma. Like, people don't understand trauma, but our police force should understand trauma. I don't know why they don't have like trauma training, because when you don't hear a voice that's familiar to you, you don't hear that voice.
No.
I would go as far as saying, even they're saying that she saw the police. I really do not believe she actually saw the police.
Yeah.
Sometimes when youth are not even just youth, when people are in trauma response mode, you don't see anything outside of what you're targeting. You don't see that. And so I don't think that people are understanding that like, he could have done other things. It didn't have to be a gun. It could have been pepper spray. It could have been a taser. It could have been anything else on his tool belt. A siren, a police siren. I don't know. They got a bullhorn, something else.
There could have been an effort to actually disarm.
Yeah. And there were more people. Yeah. A restraint. Literally, as a dean, I was taught how to get something out of someone's hand. I was taught how to restrain a kid if it's something that's happening. As my last resort, we don't get guns. And I'm fine with that, first of all. But
right.
Like, as a final effort of how do you restrain a student if they have a weapon or something in their hands?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they was taught that. If I was taught that as a dean, I know they were taught how to restrain a student, especially if their backs are turned.
Let's not. It seems as though people are forgetting. We literally watched her. We were seeing the back of her. So we know she did not know who was saying get down. And there was a number of other people around her. The biggest factor I just can't let us leave with, we don't get to know what she thought. This is the thing. We don't get to know what was going on for her. We don't get to know that from her experience, but we know she called. And I know when I listened to the call, because if you go to the Columbus, Ohio Police Department, which I want to get on a bit later, they posted a video and they shared the 2 phone calls that were made on to get people there, to get first responders there. And the first call was her voice. It's such a high, sweet voice, to be honest. I was very shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, she sounds like a little kid. She's like, get here. And she's high. She don't sound like a 6-year-old, but she sounds like a teen, you know. It didn't sound like a grown woman. You know, we get a little, you know, we can.
Yeah.
But she says, and it's probably a minute long, and the person on the phone, the attendant, he is saying, are there weapons? Because she mentioned something really quick, like, and they cut it, they stabbed us. We don't even know who she thought was stabbed already, but she's yelling out, not my grandma, not my grandma. You hear that. It's audible. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I'm just like, wow, we couldn't even give 24 hours before our own community sentenced her to this death. Breonna Taylor sentenced her to death for the boyfriend she was dealing with, right? Didn't even have the details. She shouldn't have been dealing with him.
Even Sandra Bland. She should have complied.
Mm-hmm.
She should have just complied.
Yep. All of the excuses for the civilian to have been a better person, being a better being than the trained personnel that was responding to this escalated incident. And I'm going to be honest, when people say, well, if you got someone coming with a knife towards you, first of all, if I'm ready to fight, you better be ready for whatever comes. Yeah. So if you come to a fight and trying to jump someone and you get cut, you knew the risk of trying to jump someone. So at some point, no, I don't expect police to shoot somebody who's not got a gun, for sure. Like, to me, those are not equal at all. I've been to places with pepper spray when it was just a basic argument.
Yeah.
Shut down. Y'all are out of here. You're done. Club's closed.
It was so no restraints. And the thing is, like at the end of the video, you see other officers come up. So where were they? Did they come up a little later? We don't know. But if they were there, like you wasn't by yourself. Like how are you? I don't know. Like, how are you so scared that you have to use the most lethal force that you can? And people are saying, oh, they're trained to kill. They're shoot to kill. But then I can't get the picture out of my mind where I watched on the news this guy walking out of the grocery store and his leg, something was going on with the leg.
Right.
So I don't know if this is true.
I just need to kill certain people.
Exactly.
Trained to shoot and kill certain people. Absolutely. There was a post recently that was like, be prepared for a civil war. This was this in this year. They're training. It's former officers training. So, and I'm glad we could segue a little bit. I wanted to also, so I appreciate, hopefully people can see the 5 alternatives to killing. Could have been a taser. There should have been an effort to de-escalate, and it could have been even just a siren. I think you posted, I couldn't find it, but 2 shots in the air, which I don't think they can do though.
I don't know if they can do that, but something else.
Something, but just to your point, so yeah, taser, effort to de-escalate, pepper spray, and to try and disarm and restraint. We have to use non-violent restraints or something like that. We have to go through that training as educators.
Yes.
And we have to get retrained every couple of years. In fact, in Colorado, Great Ed has a post recently about an incident that happened 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, with an elementary student who passed out because his principal, well, the story is, parents' perspective and administrator. The administrator is still in this principal position after the student passes out and because of an improper restraint hold. And so we're still seeing discrepancies, but the reality is there is an appropriate restraint that can happen. There are disarming techniques, and especially
100%.
from behind. He was, in my opinion, arm's length away from reaching to the arm of the young girl. The restraint, absolutely. And so
the restraint, I feel like would have been, if like that would have been the most appropriate at that moment.
Yeah.
Getting close enough to even tase or getting close enough to restrain, to disarm her from the weapon. It was possible. And she wasn't going after him. I'm tired of that, seeing that narrative too, of where people are saying if someone was coming after you, what would you do? And I'm like, but she wasn't.
Right.
We at least know that. We don't know a lot in this, but we do know that part. We do know that she wasn't charging after the police officer.
And so on that, I wanted to just also highlight some of the information I found after just a couple clicks. I'm not an expert. I can't say I researched it, but I did just do a couple clicks to see, what does it require to be a cop in Columbus, Ohio? Well, my friend, it only takes being over 18, having a valid driver's license, and a high school diploma or GED. So that'll get you in the door. And there's 16-week training. This particular officer had only been an officer since December 2019. So really not that long. To me, relative, right? A new teacher would be like, that's a whole year. Yes, you're still a new teacher, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I definitely would like to see, because I want to be able to showcase some changes in community too. Who should she have called? Because if she called the police and we expect her to be killed, well, we don't want that. So we don't want to. Okay, what
are the alternatives?
Who else can she call in these times? And also, like, what restorative pieces are we offering as community when we have these youth who are violating different expectations? And just like the youth violate, we have adults who continue to violate. I know of plenty of men who have continued harm in the against Black women, and they still get platforms to preach on about whatever they want to do and have jobs with universities. Don't make me pull out names. However, I will say it's known, choking them up, all kinds of things that are still violence against Black girls. And so, yeah, you may have, it's Black on Black, 2 Black girls fighting. It wasn't just 2 Black girls. It was at least 6 Black folks fighting each other. And that happens. And so that's not the comparison on Black and Black versus white on white. The stuff happens within a community. Violations happen. Who should be respected to and expected to de-escalate these situations? And then how do we create spaces for those who have committed harm to return? Because the summer's popping up, is creeping up here right now. And what do we know historically? That the warmer it gets, the more likely violence occurs in our communities. And so are we expecting cops to be shooting every kid who has a knife? No.
Right.
So what as a community can we uphold as our own expectations of how to work with our youth who do violate as well? Because she had a knife to a fight. We don't want her fighting, right? We want her to have some more coping skills. And again, she didn't get a chance to learn them. And I know as a 32-something year old myself, I know there's things that I'm learning now about, like, oh, wow, this is when I'm doing this. Oh, wow. And, it takes a long time because you need people to show a mirror to your actions. Imagine if she could have seen herself on video. She could have seen, wow, you were like this. What about those other girls? What if they could, women possibly, what if they could have seen themselves and how they come off? Because we sure are using that imagery.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you have a suggestion at all?
Whew. I feel like I could talk about this for days. Because I feel like it's watching so much that's happening in community and really thinking about this, like deeply thinking about this, especially when we talk about restorative, like how do we restore in community? I think we need our elders. We need our elders to stand in and stand up with us. Like, that's one thing. We need community people who are going to say, like, that put something in place to say, we are the place for healing. This is where you come and repair those issues. I don't know if I'm mentally prepared to go into solutions right now. I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know if I'm literally still getting to the root.
Look,
right? Like, my first thing that I thought about when I saw this video, it wasn't, why did she have a knife? It wasn't, why is she fighting? It was literally like, I want to know her story. Like, I see me, first of all. I see me. I see my students that I work with. Like, what I know, they instantly said she was in foster care. Like, what is her story? Why? Like, I instantly asked the why behind it, not saying that she deserved this. Like, why is this happening? What happened in her life? We don't know any of this. So I can't sit here and say, like, I'm ready. I'm literally in this space of like, oh, I'm angry about this. I'm ready to argue on Facebook. Anybody that's coming for me, I'm ready. But I literally know that there has to be some solutions, right? We have to get to a place as a community, and it may require that our organizations come together to create some type of solutions. Is it on a national level? Is it on a federal level? Is it on a local level? We have to talk about those things as well as a community. And it is really, really time. I've been thinking about this aspect of, okay, the world has been listening to us Black people cry for, our lives mattering, right? Like Black lives mattering. So what happens when we start to get these things that we're asking for? Right. Is it time for us now to go within community and start to heal? Because
it's always that time.
Right? Like we do have some things that we need to heal as community. And if we're moving towards not this like cancel culture, because I feel like this instantly happened with Kaya. Like it was automatic canceling, right? Like it was automatic. We're gonna cancel, like, because she was wrong. So we're not gonna root for her. It's just like, what? Like, why are we instantly canceling each other? Harm will be done in our community. Am I saying it was right that she had a knife? No. Of course, any person in their right mind, we're not saying that, it was fine. It's fine that she had a knife. No, we're saying
we don't know why she had one. But we don't know why she had one, because it's okay to have a knife. Because I'm gonna let you know, run up, get done up. I'm just gonna be real. Because
like
it might have been okay for her to have that knife.
Maybe. Right? Maybe. And what I do know is the first girl, she didn't stab her. She was going after her, but she didn't stab her.
And that's the other thing. It didn't happen. So she got shot and it had not happened.
She had the opportunity. That first girl that was on the ground, everybody know, if you've ever been in a fight, even if you've never been in a fight, even if you just watched a fight, if somebody is on the ground, they're in a very compromising position.
Yep.
They are open. It's open season, baby. Mm-hmm. So that she was literally, she had the opportunity. She had the opportunity to go in for the kill if she wanted to. She did not. It led to me believing that she was using the knife as a scare tactic. Because
that's what it looked like to me. How it was out here. Who got a knife that's way out here? I'm really trying to fight you. It's like this. If you're going, come on now.
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
We've seen all the horror movies.
Yeah.
They're hitting you like this. Come on now. I have had students. I didn't even share this trauma that I had as an educator at a particular school. But I had young girls. I said that I've broken up fights. I've also been in lines. I've been in their line of sight as a person they did not want in their face. I've had scissors ready. This stuff was right here. They're ready. They're ready because they're in fight or flight. But me, as a trained professional, under 30 at that time, I wasn't even 30. Under 30-year-old in 4 or 5 years of teaching, maybe, scissors, and this student actively coming towards me. And in this particular case, she was, probably 5'5", and definitely probably had hit 200 pounds. So she was a student who had stature and had the ability to hurt anybody almost if she understood what her body could do. But she chose weapons, so it was an extension of her as the weapon. I could not, if, like you said, I wouldn't, if I had a gun or whatever, I wouldn't have used it on that.
No,
I would have not used it. I've had chairs thrown at me.
Yep.
I've had computers thrown at me. I do not get the ability to say this person should be shot just because of that. And it has been intense moments where I have to think split second. Students who it's social emotional disabilities, they've been identified being impacted. Essentially, they are impacted by the world around them that has caused harm and didn't protect them from junk. And so now
how many times was she not protected?
Come on now, she's forced to be in these schools. They're forced to be in a system that they continue to they stick out from. They don't fit in. They're doing everything they can to either get some kind of attention, positive, or sometimes we would consider it negative, but they're getting something, right? They're grasping for a love, attention, a care, being human, to be connected. That's what it is. So whether you're connected with the negative or positive, that's what they're looking for. They're here in our building, and we can't get rid of them. We can't lock them in a room. We can't lock them in a room. You got to be careful with the restraints. If it's men dealing with young girls, it can get vicious fast too. We've seen men comment like, "Yeah, I don't even deal with girl fights because they pull the scratch." We understand that.
You don't get hit. You might get hit.
You might
get shoved. It's real.
That's why they need to pay teachers more. Let me just put that out there.
Yeah.
And then
please pay them more.
And also anybody who's willing to be of service to the community and support spaces where there's intensity and escalation, domestic violence. Those folks should be more payment for them too. I'm not saying that's a police officer. I want to shout out actually one of my friends, and Danielle. And she was just highlighted a couple of days ago, or maybe it was today. The days are blurring together now. She is one of the first social workers working with officers on the RTD line. Shout out Chantel Lewis in Colorado for really, pushing for this, a better way to work with impacted individuals who are part of our community. It's a better way. It's an opportunity. And yes, the obligation is on us to find people willing to do that and train them. And that'll help, in my opinion. This is a strategy for community work. When we invest in those space, in those opportunities, those jobs and positions, when we invest in that, we will possibly be able to start stripping away the negative connotation that is immediately there when we see officers and individuals of authority. Mm-hmm. Because if we're there, if we know, oh, this person is not like firefighters. Imagine if firefighters came to that.
Yep.
We would maybe they need to start that. EMTs. Actually, I had a bad situation with an EMT who knocked the camera out my hand because she didn't like me asking her to let the student take a breath before she took the student to the ambulance. And she was mad at me and knocked the camera out of my hand. I had to start recording. I had the camera already out because she was already on 10. She wasn't even a cop. But I was like, wow, it was such an intense, I should find the video, knocked it out my hand, and then guess what? My job was on the line because they said, well, what did you do? And some folks are agreeing now they need a dedicated mental health division. Absolutely. Amen. But it needs to be pervasive in whatever entity takes over for what currently stands as policing. So whatever entity.
They need trainings around that. They need
don't because they see do they need trainings? No.
They do. The people they need to know how
to do it.
That's true. Because they do it with other people. You're right.
So they don't need
for some reason, what is this thing that's triggered in their mind? We know racism for sure. That when they see a Black person, they instantly disarm everything they know and go directly to their weapons. Like, what is this? Okay, we know it's racism. It's racism.
Other countries that actually, I forget who I was speaking with, but they mentioned how there's other countries that this one guy went to, said his friend went to, and got trained for 3 months. Scotland, they don't use guns. Now, am I going to compare?
Yeah.
Scotland's way of managing their people who are pretty homogenous to a literal non-melting, a literal salad. No.
Yeah. Or you can do France. Like my partner lived in France for a while, and the idea that he has around policing in the US, he's like, he came to this country and he's like, everybody's afraid of the police here. Like, why? Why is that a thing? In France, we're not. We're not afraid of our police. Like, we talk to them. They talk to us. It's not this fear tactic that they use when they come into our communities. It's not, they don't instantly pull out their guns when they come into our communities.
Now, Now, what France does need to work on is banning burqas and stuff like that. But
Right.
an intense immigration issue as well.
Yep.
But in regards to what we're talking about,
Right. Side note.
And I'm only saying that because it's relevant to indicate we're not saying you have to be perfect, but you know what? That officer who killed her, do we want him still patrolling? No, you need to get off. You don't get to do that anymore. Yep. No. How many killings does an officer get to have that is justifiable? Mm-hmm. Okay, you want to talk about how the parallel to George Floyd and this situation is? Oh, you don't want to talk about that? Oh, I see where you stand. Okay.
Right.
So you want this officer to still be in on duty?
Right.
No, I don't. And Columbus is it has a lot. It's a large population of Black folks, isn't there? To my understanding,
I don't know.
Concentrated for sure. I've been to Ohio and I've been to Columbus, and this is just getting overwhelming. It's getting overwhelming. And Bria Yan said a couple of things earlier and is saying, dehumanizing the people in the community. Absolutely, police seem to do that with particular communities more so than others. And the training that you were mentioning, maybe it is the training to fear the Black community. Absolutely. I remember my older sister showing me a book, an excerpt from a book, and when she was being trained to be an educator. And it lays out how in this textbook, it did this. It claimed, this was its claim, that you have to treat students different. Black boys need this, Black girls. And it starts with, yes, how are you training that bias? How are you fulfilling that bias? And also another sponsor, shout out Jameer, Jessica Springs does bias training. And she also has worked with the cops. She's done kids and cops before, and those conversations get heated. They basically have a platform to discuss where is this disconnect. There were some boys who were riding their bike in a neighborhood, and they recently were harassed essentially by the police because they didn't have a bike tag. But in their area, which was like not far, they could bike to and from it. You didn't have to have a bike tag. You did not have to have your bike registered. And so the officers, they got mad because the boys were like, no, we're what? How can you take our bikes? They weren't given a warning. The officer ends up arresting one of the boys, and it's just like the boys don't get and girls don't get. Our Black children do not get a childhood free of harassment, and that's what I mean. A childhood. Their childhood is tarnished with trauma. It is impacted with judgment, and the idea, especially for young Black girls, that they should have known better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Keep that same energy.
Yeah, I can't stand that they should have known better. Really? Did we know better? Sometimes some of the things that we did as adults. That's my whole thing, is just seeing people. I'm like, wow, we're so quick to judge. But how many of us are mentors? Like, did Kaya have a mentor to call instead of the police?
They're literally saying they watched the video, don't want to see her dead, but you can't defend her actions.
Yep. They're saying that.
This is just, to me, it's just with a Black girl. To me, it's the same conversation that should have been had with George Floyd.
Just seriously, the police should have known better. True. The police should have known better.
Well, I'm gonna be real. No, they were saying there was drugs, there was counterfeit bills, resisting, arguing. Okay, a grown man did all those three things, and we still can defend him and say he should not have been shot dead on the street. But you're literally typing on Kanye West's internet that this girl shouldn't have been having a knife. What? Someone this morning called me and was like, some things don't need to be said, though.
Yeah.
That's part of the restorative piece. That doesn't need to be blasted out. She should have had a chance to be to get
Her day in court if she did stab the girl.
In court, girl,
right?
You need to be taking care of them
That's
kids.
the thing. Like we are asking for these systems to work for us in some cases. But then when the people don't make it to this day for the system to work for them, we justify it. It's not justifiable. It's not. I don't care. Okay, whatever. We already talked about this. We've said this. We, of course, okay, a knife. Yes, it's a weapon. We don't know the circumstances around it fully yet.
Couldn't even get 24 hours, but they.
Yep. We don't know the circumstance. But what if we just make an assumption based on what we know now? Okay. Let's say for sure she didn't need a weapon. It was no, okay, cool, whatever. That doesn't mean that she deserved to die. That doesn't mean that that officer, who I'm sure is trained in restraint efforts, I'm sure they could have restrained her. If we want this system, we want justice to work for us, if that's the goal.
No one is innocent in anybody's eyes. So that's where we have to start from. Okay, we're going to assume you might have had a violation at some point. They can drudge up anything. But just because you can be proven not to have been guilty of something, as we see, some people get to live through that.
Some people get to live and others die.
Right.
And often our Black girls are those girls who die.
Yeah.
Or who don't even make it, don't get the benefit of the doubt. Don't get to tell their stories.
Yep. They're disregarded. And I think that's what I feel like is happening. The young Black girl is written off and not savable. And then the young Black boy's experience tends to be death immediately as well, right? And so I think about the young Black girl who was at the pool party. The officer flipped her over. What was she doing wrong? You still didn't see as much outrage. You still really didn't see it. Because I think what happens is we think about either ourselves and how we know we've acted and felt like maybe I should have done something else better. It's my fault. I could have listened. No. There's at some point we have to stop projecting, because a lot of this stuff is projecting.
It's survival. Like the Black community is in survival mode. Period. We operate in survival mode. We are teaching our children how to comply so that they live, right? We know these are the messages. Unfortunately, we have to teach our kids.
Yeah.
This is what you do when you're stopped by the police. We have been in survival mode forever.
And was she not also impacted by the riots? Was she not able to also have feelings about this jury? And then now we're getting pieces of, she is also having to defend her very livelihood and was with her grandmother. So whether we say foster care or not, she was just maybe temporarily not with her biological mother, but she was still with family. So whatever judgments, we got to push that out. She's still a being existing as a Black girl in the United States. And dealing with the same stuff that functioning adults who make right decisions all the time, who barely were functioning yesterday.
Yeah.
I guarantee if someone came with some beef from the past and wanted to address me, it would have been a possible.
We're still working on our responses. We're still working on those responses. Like, how do we expect this to come from a 16-year-old girl when some of us adults are still? I have been most disappointed by our community.
Yeah.
In this situation, I expect it from other communities. I expect that. I'm braced for that. But within the community, my heart was broken, is broken, because it's like we instantly blamed her because we got a little bit of joy yesterday that people want to ponder on. We got a little bit.
I was just like, okay.
They gave us an inch yesterday. So now
they protected their U.S. investment. That's what was done.
Right. So now we are complicit with this system. Yeah. And we automatically take the side of the system instead of taking the side of this child. She is a child.
And when you take the side, it is not erasing her actions. And that's what I feel like is, again, it is being written off. Just because you stand up for someone does not mean you're not holding them accountable. At least for me. But maybe I'm in error because maybe that's the problem. It's an assumption.
Of course she needs to be held. I wish we could have held her accountable. Death to me is not the type of accountability I want in my community.
Because let us be honest about how we see some of our community members' children act in the community. They're not a joy to work with all the time. I'm like, this was work. Yeah. Your kids can really put a toll on us all. And because of what trauma is already they're dealing with and they're struggling through. So,
and a lot of times that's how kids know how to solve their problems. Fighting.
Adults still fight.
Right. Fighting in my community, where I grew up with that I wrote a post about this. I grew up around this. I grew up around fighting. I grew up seeing this as a solution to solving problems.
Yeah.
I can't dismiss that narrative that we know this to be a tool of problem solving in some of our communities. I can't blanket that for all communities, but in some of our communities, it's a tool that we use. And then as we grow and as we develop, and as some of us go to therapy, we learn other ways to cope with our anger. We learn other ways to approach our problems and do some type of conflict resolution. Yep. But let's not act like this has not been a tool that we've used. Mm-hmm. Just because we live in a different zip code, or just because we got a couple degrees or letters behind our names, let's not forget that this is not like this girl was using what she knew as survival.
Yeah.
Period. We should expect as a community for those who we call upon to help us solve these problems or come to our defense, we should expect them to come in a way that protects us. Mm-hmm. Period. I don't care if she had any types of weapons. I done seen bats being used, broken glass, all types of things. And I've seen it done before where I've seen Black officers come into the community and break up fights where people had weapons in their hands. Growing up, I lived right across the park where everybody would go. On Sunday, we knew at the whole community come out, you go to the park.
I'm done.
And at that park, you probably heard that a fight was going to go down that day. And you know who it was. And we was out there watching, as kids usually do. And we were waiting for it to pop off. And people came out there with all types of weapons. And the police came. But people was able to go home.
Well, you know what? You hit on something and that I just appreciate. First of all, we're a nation that glamorizes fighting and violence. We really do. We glamorize it. MMA. We have WWE. We have all of we some of the greatest champions of the world. We have boxers. Right. And they also stood for social justice but obviously they were trained, but that doesn't really negate the fact that sometimes we have accepted in certain scenarios violence to be a resolve and is an okay thing. We've accepted it. Well, yeah, we're fighting. Mm-hmm. We're fighting. But I want to wrap us up. You've already given de-escalation tips and you've highlighted how your own personal childhood had experiences of violence within youth, right? Handling conflict by fighting and living to see another day. You've highlighted that there's a lot of differences and discrepancies in how officers approach young Black youth, Black girls in particular, in comparison to their white peers who experience the same emotional distress. And you also just, have supported the realization that our community definitely continues to expect more of our youth than it may, the adultification of our young girls, and expecting them to be a better person than what is actually happening in their lives, and have the emotional and intellectual capacity to manage their trauma in a way that avoids the violence that we're saying, hey, you do this in the streets, you get what you got. And I'm like, okay. So again, I really appreciate you. And with that, everybody else who's commented, I may not agree with everything I posted on here. I may have added emphasis on things that I definitely do agree with. But I just know that it is imperative that we really evaluate the way we treat young Black girls, and how we are expecting them to behave in a particular manner, which maybe they don't have those examples yet. And then, how community really could have responded in the first 24 hours of hearing this situation in a better way that would indicate compassion, empathy, respect, and opportunity to restore violations, because young girls are watching this now, and so they'll know what you think of them by your comments. We see it. And
where do you stand?
So where do you stand? Thank you so much, Yarkenda, and I appreciate your expertise and willingness to vent and let me share my space and my feelings too. And with that, everybody, I'm gonna ask you to stay curly.
Stay curly.